aside from Christmas. And I think that he'll make his debut within the next 2 weeks, but not by next week's show.
All right. Well, I always hate to end the show on a negative note, but we were talking before the show, and to give America a peek behind the curtain, Jason was saying it's a disaster in Brooklyn right now. And I said, no, Jason, it's a disaster in Chicago right now. And we were arguing back and forth, and it made us think which of our two beloved basketball teams are really in the worst shape. The Nets have obviously lost 6 in a row, Jason. I'm sure you're keenly aware, although they are up 7 right now on the Thunder. Meanwhile, the Bulls are tied for the third longest losing streak at 4 in a row after dropping another game last night to Dallas. Uh, Things are not going great in Chicago, neither in Brooklyn, Jason. So I'll let you go first. Make your case. Which team is in worse shape at this point?
I mean, look, short term, I think both of these teams are in trouble. The Nets, losers is six straight. If they snap it, as we're recording against the Thunder, that's great. But, they're not finishing games. They're playing poor defense. Their rotations are very predictable. Like I was at the Nets Raptors game on Saturday night, and Kenny puts the same guys in at the same times. We know who's playing the second quarter. We know who's starting the fourth quarter. And then eventually they wave the white towel and put Theo Pinson in. It's become very predictable. I think they've slipped a little bit now that Nawaba's out for the year with the torn Achilles, and they released him. They cut him on Shumpert. So a lot of those guys, when they were going on that run, were making plays defensively, and that led to better looks offensively. I mean, Taurean Prince is just chucking brick after brick. Spencer Dinwiddie's doing it alone. Karis LeVert's back, and he looked great, but he's on load management, so he didn't play in Monday's loss to the Magic. He's playing as we speak with the Nets taking on the Thunder. Now, I like our little combo Nets, Bulls, Blues here. I guess we'll just call it that. Obviously, the Nets are in great shape long term because Kevin Durant's coming back. The news about Kyrie Irving's tough as he has the bursitis, and that might require surgery, which could cost him the season. If I'm Kyrie, I'm getting that surgery. And then you bring Kyrie and KD back healthy because I've been telling you for months, I've been telling everyone who talks smack to me about the Nets, I am all in next year. It's a long-term game here. If they make the playoffs and fight, great, get these young guys battle tested again, but I'm all in for next year. So right now they're in trouble, but long-term they're in great shape.
Yeah, I mean this year you could maybe make the case for the Bulls, although I'm pretty loath to make it with Coach Jim Boylan here. But ultimately, you're absolutely right, Jason. I mean, the Bulls are a little bit of a dumpster fire right now. You look at this team; they have way too much talent for how badly they've played. And on the other hand, the Nets, I mean, they are just scrapping along. I mean, it's honestly a huge credit, I think, in some ways to Atkinson when you really look at this team. I mean, not to not to undermine your point, but I mean, really, the best player on the Nets is Spencer Dinwiddie, who could barely make it off the practice squad for the Bulls. I mean, they were trying to put him in the G League. They were doing practices with him. I mean, they couldn't get him minutes in Chicago. He comes to Brooklyn. Atkinson turns him into a player. Joe Harris was a cast off. I mean, the guys on this team are not these like all-star caliber guys who have just been killing it. I mean, I look at this Nets team without Kyrie and without Durant. I mean, they have nice role players, but I feel like they've been playing over their heads without Irving, and I think it's remarkable how well they've played. I think the reverse is true with the Bulls, where you look at a guy like Zach LaVine, who's, quite frankly, he's an all-star level player. You have other guys in this team who should be in that same mold, like Markkanen and Wendell Carter. Those are guys who you really expect to be better, and they're just underperforming, and part of it is that they're just not in great situations. So to me, I think you're absolutely right. The Nets are in a better situation long term. They have a great coach. They have a bunch of role players and a guy like Dinwiddie who is overqualified maybe to be your third guy, and he's going to very nicely slot in there for them. And who knows what they do in the offseason if they can make any other moves. You mentioned Torian Prince. I don't think he's going to be around too much longer, but
Well,
we'll
they
see
have
what
to
they
find
do.
a taker for him. You can't just guarantee that, Ben, because they gave him a $30 million extension. It's $20 million less than what Karras got, but he's locked in for the next 2 years as well. So this core is together, and the only thing I hope for in the offseason, aside from maybe a veteran or two that wants to jump on the bandwagon, but Joe Tsai has to go outside the cap and bring Joe Harris back because he's going to get a deal, at least $13 million a season, probably similar to peak JJ Redick, and he's going to be sought after. And I think he's the type of guy who wants to stay in Brooklyn. But the $8 million deals are over. Okay, Joe Harris's hometown discount days are over, and he's going to command a huge deal. And if he goes elsewhere, the Nets are screwed because he's their shooter. And he struggled so far this year. I mean, he could finish at the rim, but he's not shooting as well as he did last season. I think that's just him getting used to playing with Dinwiddie. He was used to D'Angelo Russell, and it's a learning curve. That's why the silver lining with this Kyrie KD injury news is that all these guys are getting the time. And I'll say this before we wrap up. DeAndre Jordan, I know it's a long deal, and I know you had a lot to say about it. He's been every bit the player they thought they were getting, worth every penny so far. I mean, listen, my girlfriend got me really good seats for the game for my birthday. I was about 4 rows off the court diagonally, and just watching Jordan, the way he hypes up the starters, just his manners, he plays really well. So right now he's worth every bit of money that they paid him.
Yeah, he has stepped it up. I mean, the last few games, I mean, I don't know if it's a great sign. I mean, Allen has kind of been he has not played his best basketball recently, and he's felt like an afterthought in some of these games. And it pains me, Jason. You know how much I love the Fro. Uh, he is just, if you were a guy who felt like Jared Allen was going to be a future All-Star, raise your hand. My hand's way up in the air, Jason. This was not a great season for that prediction. He has really not taken the step forward in terms of being aggressive that I was expecting him to. I thought he was going to become a more aggressive player. He's shooting less than he did a season ago. His free throw shooting is a little bit worse. He just doesn't look like a guy who's comfortable taking over. And, the Nets are on track for the lowest number of post-ups in NBA history, Jason, which is incredible. And it speaks to the fact that they don't feel confident getting Allen the ball and letting him go to work down there. That's not his game. And frankly, I mean, it looks like he's a guy who's really going to be just a rim runner defender for his career. I mean, we can see what happens with the 3-point shot, but he hasn't really gotten to a point there either where you're like, okay, I'm comfortable letting him shoot that. And this year he's really stopped shooting it altogether. So
See, I know what you're saying. And look, he's still only 21 years old. And look, your points are very valid. But he's 21 years old, and he's not a traditional post-up center. He's not a Hakeem Olajuwon. He's a modern NBA center. And that's why a guy of Jordan's caliber is okay coming off the bench behind a guy like Jared Allen. Look, Jordan will start some games based on matchups, things like that. Like, Jordan got the start against Dallas because Dwight Powell was the starting center. He's a bit of a banger, and Porzingis was out. So Kenny made it matchup based, but Jordan's okay with being the backup center because Allen's still got potential. These are growing pains. He's another guy who had a great rapport with D'Angelo Russell. He was the only point guard he knew. Dinwiddie was playing with Ed Davis, Jared Dudley. So I just think it's a learning curve. And another guy who's really high on Jared Allen, Kevin Durant, fellow Texas Longhorn. I think he's going to love being a stretch four with Allen in the middle because I don't know if you saw his dunk tonight on Terrence Ferguson. It was probably one of the best blocks of his career. And he also dunked all over him. So he's going to be okay. He's got some polishing to do, but long term he's going to be fine.
Well, I'm glad that one of us is optimistic about their team. And Jason, I think that's a great place to leave it. Our buddy Jason here, he's following in my footsteps quite literally by taking a little trip to Miami. So we need to let him get his beauty sleep, and we want all of you to get some rest. We are happy though to welcome you in to the new year, 2020. We're just so excited to have this show and have all you guys around. So we wish you all a very productive, a very happy, and a very fruitful 2020, Jason. Anything you want to add?
No, I completely forgot this was our first show of 2020. So thanks for the reminder, sir. But we just have to ask the people to subscribe, rate, and review.
5 stars, please.
Have a great week, Ben. Have a great week, everybody else. And I'm going to go get into some warm weather now.
Enjoy the sunshine. And all of you, enjoy the new year.